It is the technology show where we translate geek into regular speak. I'm Brett Levy. I'm your host this week, and I'm late on all time zones. So I was talking to my producer after last week's show about whether we stay on Sydney time or we stay on Queensland time. We decided to stay on Queensland time, so that means it'll be 3 o'clock for the rest of the country on the eastern side, if you're in Australia. But I'm still late anyway because I had some lovely technical glitches. Anyway, we're here. As they say, the show must go on. So the show takes a bit of a different format this week, as it's time to pay homage to some really incredible new tech. So everything in this week's show is things with a Z. Let's bring up the slides. No need to have any more suspense there. Let's get that all up and get into the show. Right, so a couple of weeks ago, made by Google. This is like all the other big brands. When products are shown off, it's a showcase. This year was no different. So the Made by Google 2023 event had some really, really cool launch products. There was the new Pixel 8, the new Pixel 8 Pro, and the Pixel Watch 2. They also announced Android 14, which comes on the two phones. That's the nice thing with the Pixels, right? And it's always been the case with the Pixels, even when they weren't made by Google, that the Pixel always got the new Android operating system before anyone else. There's some incredibly cool software and AI when it comes to the lineup, and I got to play with all of them. So let's get into the show. What have we got now? So Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro. Now, as you know, my gaming phone is and always has been an Android device. I use Apple, I use a MacBook, but when it comes to fun and playing, it's always been Android. And there's multiple reasons for it. But this really became a super toy when the day that I moved over to Pixel. I've had the 6 Pro, the 7 Pro, and I now have the 8 Pro. And it's now taken its rightful place as my weapon of choice. I must just say, by the way, transferring from, I don't know if it's because I transferred from a Pixel to a Pixel, or if it's as seamless if you go from Android brand A to Android brand B, because I actually haven't done it in a very long time. It was super easy. Like it was a lot easier than I remember it being last year when I moved from 6 Pro to 7 Pro. So obviously something's been updated in that in the transfer there. And again, being Gmail based, obviously you can start with a fresh install, log into Gmail, and bring down what you choose to. For me though, I wanted all my game records and all the previous things. So anyway, so what's the difference between the 8 and the 8 Pro? Well, let's unpack it a bit. And then you actually might be pleasantly surprised at how capable and similar both of these devices are. So from the outside and specifically the front, and if you're watching the show, I've put some pictures up to show the phones from the front and the back. If you look at the front, which is what we're talking about at the moment, they are pretty similar. In fact, there's not much difference at all. The size is about 1/2 inch to be precise, with the Pixel 8 being slightly smaller, 1/2 inch smaller than the Pixel 8 Pro. What is interesting though is it's actually slightly smaller than the Pixel 7. So if size is an important thing to you, and you know some people they prefer small phones, other people want a big phone, but if size is actually quite an important thing to you, or the lack thereof, then the Pixel 8 is definitely one to look at. Screen technology is the same in both. They both have OLED screens, super bright OLED screens, I might add, impressive 120 Hz refresh rates. So I've had people ask me what's the importance of the refresh rate? If you play games, and remember, this is why I use an Android phone. I do play games. So refresh rates are definitely something, and in fact, I have a saying, frames wins games. But a refresh rate is the way the screen refreshes when something's changing on it. So if you're playing a shooter game, for example, and you're moving from left to right with your gun, you don't want the screen to tear, which is when it gets these vertical lines as it's trying to rebuild itself. So a smaller or lower refresh rate will cause tearing. A higher refresh rate obviously removes that. So 120 Hz on a phone, pretty impressive. Now, I might point out that was actually the same spec on the Google 7 Pro. So they haven't changed it there. The screens are brighter. They've packed more into it. There's obviously newer technology in OLED. It is a year later. But Google's also gone and got rid of the curved edging on the case now for both of the phones. So last year, on the Pixel 7 and the Pixel 7 Pro. The Pixel 7 was flat, but the Pixel 7 Pro had these slightly cambered edges. Now, I personally don't like them, but if you read up on some of the posts that have appeared over the years, this is one thing that a lot of Android users don't like, is these curved edges. I say Android users because Apple's never put a curved lens or curved screen on their phones. I kind of don't mind it. What you do notice, though, is when you're playing games in a curved environment, it kind of can move it off, and your finger can slide off the glass, but still be touching the glass and it's active. So I do understand where people don't like it. I said, for me, it doesn't bother me. It also makes the phone a lot less easy to break the screen. When you drop a phone with a curved glass, 9 times out of 10, it's the curve that's going to hit the floor, and it's going to obviously crack. Even screen protectors don't go edge to edge on them. So there's a lot of reasons to move away from a curved glass. And for those of you that found it problematic, I'm pleased to announce that the Pixel 8, and you can see, I mean, I don't know, I can try and bring that in there, but you can see there's along the edges now, it's actually the aluminum body. It's not the curved glass anymore. So for those of you that was a reason not to get the Pixel 7 or 7 Pro, not 7 Pro, sorry, you don't have that reason anymore. It's just one of those phones that just feel comfortable in your hand. It's got the soft round edges, and that hasn't changed. I mean, if you look at the phone from the back and you look at the sides, and that part hasn't changed at all. In fact, I could do a side by side as well and show you. But it feels, now that that curved glass is not there, it feels different, and it feels good. It feels right. I have a game coming up on my phone, which I clearly give away that I'm not working. So it's just got a great grip. And then the last thing I want to talk about grip is the camera housing. So this is something that initially, when this design first came out with this raised ridge, it did get some interesting. In fact, there were some memes that put people sitting on it, like with their legs hanging off it, and people had a go at it. Some loved it, some don't. I personally love it when you're holding the phone this way and you grip it like that. I'm trying to show on the camera if you're watching the show. My fingers actually grip nicely along there, and this is awesome if you're holding the phone not to take pictures, because I'm not covering the glass. I mean, the camera houses, but just to sit and watch content or read or something like that. So this is not so bad. But anyway, that is still there. That hasn't changed. The materials seem to be blended better into the actual rest of the housing. It's a little bit more of an aesthetic design there. But yeah, so I do enjoy the phone. I really do. Now, staying with the front, where, again, we're looking at the phones, besides the slight difference in size, they don't really look different. They both rock a 10.5 megapixel front-facing snapper. Now, this is capable of 4K UHD video capture at 60 frames per second. So Google clearly means business when it comes to taking pics and video. And that doesn't stop when you flip these bad boys over. Now, before we talk about them at the back, I just want also a couple more things that they have in common. They're both IP68 rated. Now, this means fresh water up to 1.5 meters for about 30 minutes, and they're dust resistant. So if you drop your phone in the pool or toilet or anything like that, you've got 30 minutes to take it out. Most pools aren't really deeper than 1.5 meters. It's at this point, and I'm just having a look at the comments and some of the comments that come through, and it's normally this comment comes in, I'm just seeing if it has actually come in. But I always get asked things like, should you take a phone into the pool? What's going to happen to my phone if the water gets in? Okay, so let's start with that question. If the water gets in your phone, it's poked. It's just simple. Doesn't matter what phone you got. Electronics aren't designed for water. I think maybe once in my life. In fact, it has been once in life, and it was the Sony Xperia that I did it with. I took the phone into the pool to see what happened with the water picture. And that was the first and last time I've done it. Why? I just don't think they belong in the pool. If I really wanted to take photos in the pool, I'd get a waterproof camera. That's probably the advice that I would give. And that's the kind of comments that I'm expecting to come through on the show as well. And I hear people saying, yes, Brett, but it's IP68 rated. You just told us it. It is. And you can take it into the pool. Most pools have chlorine. Chlorine oxidizes on electronics. If you don't clean it off properly, you could be diminishing the protection on the phone. these are beautiful devices. Why would you want to do that? So, if maybe you're sitting at the pool, you've got a young kid, he's doing something cute, and you're in there and you're taking snaps and you get water on it, you don't have to have a freak. But to actually get in and start swimming with your phone, if that's something you want to do, get a GoPro, like get a camera that's just in the housing and take it underwater. Anyway, this is the front of the Google Pixel 8 and the Google Pixel 8 Pro. Now it starts to get interesting. So when we turn these bad boys over, the first thing is let's go back to the cameras. And this is where it all starts to get super interesting and the differences start to become very apparent very quickly between the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 8 Pro. So coupled with Google's, and I'm going to say incredible software, because we're going to talk about that a bit later on. The Pixels are known for their cameras, and this year does not disappoint. So if you're watching the show, the phone, I'm just trying to think how this would work. If you're looking at the screen, the phone on the right, so like the gray colored one, which I think is called Coral actually, that is the Pixel 8. And then the white colored one, that is the Pixel 8 Pro. Now, there's a couple of things that give it away. The first is the Pixel 8 has 2 cameras. Okay, so the little round circle, there's not the camera, it's just where it's one of the lenses. In fact, I'm actually wrong. That picture that I have up there is the Google Pixel Pro 7. Apologies. If we go back a screenshot, I'm just thinking about it. There we go. So I'm going to leave it on this for now because that actually was a comparison between last year and next year, and I'm actually going to get to that. So I'm going to leave this here for now. So you can see the housing has now been included. They both look the same from that sense, but the Pixel 8 has 2 cameras. It's got a 50 megapixel main camera and it's partnered with a 12 megapixel ultra wide. The Pixel 8 Pro also has the 50 megapixel main camera, but its second camera is a massive 48 megapixel telephoto. And if that's not enough, another 48 megapixel ultra wide. This is some serious camera technology that has been put into the back of these phones. Now, I've said it in previous shows, and today's not going to be any different. I am not a professional photographer, nor do I understand all the terminology, but in simple speak, this phone takes insanely awesome pics. Don't ask me about the aperture, the f1.4 or 1.7, 1.2, and I don't even know if those numbers even make sense to people that take pictures. Alon, if you are watching the show, maybe you can type into the chat. I really don't know. I've never owned a high-end camera. I have no desire to own a high-end camera. I take beautiful pictures with my cell phone, and I always have my cell phone with me. And I am probably the same as 80% of the world. That's why phone companies make phones with incredible cameras. But the thing that I have noticed is when I look at my 7 Pro, hence the picture that I went on, I shot the gun. When I look at my 7 Pro versus the new Pixel 8 Pro. Now, if you're watching the show, it's not that clear, but if you can zoom in somehow, and I can't because this is broadcast software, it doesn't let me do those type of things. But you look at the main camera in the middle, and it is just massive. It's probably like, I'm trying to picture a Dirty Harry movie scene when you're staring down the barrel of his 357 Magnum. It's just this big hole aiming at you. And do you ask yourself, do you feel lucky punk? It's no different with this phone. The cameras are massive. Like I thought last year's cameras were massive. These are massive. Like the 2 side by side are massive. So if you're not clued up on how to take good pics, don't worry. If you're like me and you're not into aperture and I don't know what all the other fancy things, HDR, ABC, XYZ, and all the other things in between, Google's got your back. So I'm going to talk about some of the awesome software a bit later on the show, but let's just finish with the hardware side because I just want to unpack the differences between the 8 Pro and the 8. So the first is the cameras. Now, if you go inside the devices, like previous models, both the 8 and 8 Pro are powered by Google's own silicone. It's called the Tensor. Last year was Tensor G2. This year is Tensor G3. It's 8 gigs on the 8 and 12 gigs of RAM on the 8 Pro. The 8 Pro has got about a 10% bigger battery at just over 5,000 milliamps. Both have fast and wireless charging. Both have in-screen fingerprint to unlock. unfortunately, the same face unlock as the Series 7 still seems to be there. Now, I'm going to put out there, Apple's Face ID, in my opinion, maybe some of the industry's opinion, well, is still the best facial recognition technology when it comes to phones. I did mention this last year, and I see it's pretty much the same this year. Although your phone does unlock with Face Unlock, it's still kind of, it kind of needs you to touch it and do stuff to it. It's just not as intuitive as Face ID is on an Apple iPhone. Is this a deal make or breaker for buying the phone? No, because I don't think too many Android phones actually have it 100% right. It does do it. Once you've unlocked and set up your PIN for the first time in the day, fingerprint on the screen. And while you're doing that, you'll see a little ring comes around the front camera, and that, like a light ring, and then that unlocks your phone. I did find it sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. It's just, yeah. So basically, that's the one thing that's, to me, still isn't right, but it's there. Now, if you're looking at a new phone, and specifically Android, you would actually be doing yourself a major disservice if you did not look at the Pixel 8 or Pixel 8 Pro. These are still my favorite Android phones, and that's now 2 years running. Before, I think at Android, what was it, Google, the Pixel 6 was the first made by Google phone. At that stage, I was using a TCL, their Pro, and I think I actually preferred my TCL Pro to the 6 Pro, not the cameras. The cameras have always been the selling point, but I can categorically say that the 7 and now the 8 are my favorite Android phones. So, they are still priced below some of the other flagships out there. I don't get into pricing. The reason for that mainly, someone actually asked me about the other day. They said, hey, Brett, how come you don't really talk about pricing and that? Well, there's a couple of reasons for it. The first reason is a lot of people watch the show all over the world. So, if I use the word dollars, which is Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, American dollars, Egyptian dollars, then I have to sit there and actually start saying in USD. So I just don't talk about prices. But as a whole, in whichever currency you're talking in, the Pixels still do come in as flagship devices below the price of other flagship devices. And yes, some people might say, yeah, well, others do other things more or less. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I love these phones. I really do. And I can't actually wait to get my hands on the Pixel 9 already. And I've just got the Pixel 8, he says, as a sport child. Right. So let's get into software. So Android 14 was launched, as I said at the beginning of the show. The one nice thing about a Pixel, and if you're a techie and you're a software person, you probably got access to the beta versions of Android somewhere out there. As with all betas, and specifically in the Android environment, because of the bloatware or the operational software that runs based on the brand of Android phone you have, beta software can be more problematic than maybe an iOS beta. And that's because it's being designed for the Google Pixel. Actually, I'm just going to put it out there. That is why the Pixels launched with Android 14, or the latest version of Android. 13 last year was no different, because it works. It's been designed for that. So if you have sideloaded or downloaded a beta version onto a Samsung or an HTC or one of those, you might have found more bugs than actually were there. That's no reason to give up on Android 14. It's super cool. I did discuss some of the features of this earlier when we did the Google I/O show. I think it's June or July, if you want to go back and have a look-see. So I'm not really going to get into the OS. When I don't use the phone for much more than gaming, photography, or entertainment as a whole. So some of the really cool features, I'll give you one of them. So when you're on hold, you can turn off the hold music, and then your phone will alert you. I don't make that many phone calls on my phone. I play on my phone. I consume content on my phone. That's what I take photos and I edit them on my phone. That's what I do with my phone. So the phone features, the translate feature I've actually used. That's quite cool. So you can translate, and Android 14 has a real-time translation feature. I might actually be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. But for now, let's talk about the Photos app. So you do need the Google's Photos app. I think it comes preloaded on the phone. If not, it was there because I brought my old phone across. If you're an iPhone user, get Google Photos. It's awesome. They make it just as a photo app. It makes some really cool memories and collages and that for you. I get these little notifications all day long. But equally, it has all these tools, right, which I'm going to talk about now. And I actually noticed that Google shared a bit of love with Apple about a week or so ago. The Magic Eraser feature, I think, was there on some of the phones. I'm not sure if it's all the phones, but someone was talking about it in one of my forums that you can actually get Magic Eraser. So I went onto my iPhone, had a look, and it was there. So if you're on iOS, go and check it out. Anyway, we're talking about Google today, so let's go back to Google. So last year they introduced the Magic Eraser. So if you're watching the show, the Magic Eraser was you had an image in the background, you could just select it and disappeared. So this year they've now made it that with the ability to remove larger objects. So the screenshot I put up is it's a lady on the beach and there's like a lifeguard towel in the background. First of all, it automatically detected that that probably shouldn't be there if you're trying to do a shot on someone. So it already highlights it, and then you just tap it and disappears, and the AI builds up and patches the area. Now, the Magic Editor also allows you to move the subject, change the backgrounds, remove objects, edit the lighting. So I've tried to show that as well if you're watching. Like the scene is clearly a blue sky down on the beach, and then after the lifeguard tile has been removed, I'm just describing it through. It's now got this almost twilight color in the background. The subject's been moved front and center, so she was on the extreme left. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool features that have now been updated with Magic Eraser, Magic Edit, and now Magic Editor. So you can actually do all this editing on the fly. And as I said, this is what I use the phone for. It's what I enjoy. This, though, however, is so super cool. If you take pictures or use your phone for 80% for the cameras, then this one feature alone is probably the reason to buy a Google Pixel. It's called Best Take. Now, what Best Take is, so it's designed for group photos. Imagine there's 4 people in a shot. And I'm saying imagine because if you're watching the show, you can see there's 4 people in the shot. And always, right, you're going out with mates, or in this case, there's people sitting on a carousel going around on horses. It's a family. Always you take a picture, someone's eyes closed, or someone's pulling a funny face, or smirking, or looking the wrong way, or there's a whole reason that things go wrong. Now, I have a habit of shooting, and this is before Best Take, by the way. I have a habit of shooting 5, 6, 7 photos at a time. And there's 2 reasons for it. 1, 9 times out of 10, I forget to put my glasses on, so I can't actually see the damn photo anyway. So I just want to make sure that I've got at least 1 decent photo in there. 2, I want to be able to make, 2 now is Best Take, okay? So what it does is you take a picture. So if you're watching the show, the picture of the family at the top of the carousel, you can see that the young boy in the front has got like a funny face. He's pulling his mouth open. I'm just describing it for the listeners, right? So you then push Best Take. A little app opens up, and that's what I've tried to show on the side there, which takes all the pictures that you've taken. So remember I said I shoot 5 or 6 pics. Finds that person's face, you select it, and it gives you 5 different faces from the other 5 pictures that you took that you can then select and change. So if you now look at the picture below, you can see it's the same picture, but I've changed the face of the one kid, the one that was putting the funny face. Now, when I look at it after the fact, it was actually quite cool how he did it. So I haven't deleted the photo. I can save the photo and just create a copy of it and then put it into the editor, bring up the colors, make it portrait, blur out the backgrounds. There's so many things you can do with this. But just that. So what I did is I actually shot some photos here, and I asked the subjects to look this way, look that way, look up, look down, pull a face, don't pull a face. I probably shot about 8 or 9 versions of the pose that they were in. Yeah, selected best face and created the best of that collection of pictures. You know, and again, there's always that, oh, I look so good in this picture, but you're pulling such a stupid face. Discussion, well, that's a thing in the past. So yeah, Best Take, hands down, probably my favorite AI Google Photos tool that's been launched since they've been doing AI photo tools. They've also announced Audio Magic Eraser. Now, I actually haven't tried this, but basically the idea behind audio, so Magic Eraser, remove stuff, Audio Magic Eraser. You're out there, you're filming your kid in the park, maybe you're singing, dancing, doing cute stuff, and a car drives past, and the hooter goes. So now you got this kid and he's singing his heart out, and as he gets to the crescendo, that's what you hear. The idea is that Audio Magic Eraser will look for sounds that are not supposed to be there, or sounds that you don't want to focus on, and you can either soften them, remove them, amplify them as well if need be, I suppose, but you wouldn't be erasing them if you didn't want them to start with. So it's pretty cool. As I said, I actually haven't tried it. You know what it's like? I tried to set a scene to see if I could capture it and then use it, but I didn't get anything right. So haven't used it. I did watch some of the videos online about it. It looks pretty cool. There was one, I think the guy's like playing drums and talking, and then he just moves the drums down. So yeah, you know, for your videos where something, or maybe even someone, there might be a voiceover. I get accused of that quite often, that I talk as someone's filming a video and I say a snarky comment, whatever. Now, of course, it's recorded. So maybe Audio Magic Eraser will actually remove that as well. Those are videos I can actually look for because I do it all the time. Anyway, these features do require the Google Photos app though. So that's why I said, get the Google Photos app if you haven't got it. It's cool anyway. Like even if you didn't use these features, it's great. But the other thing as well is not all photos or not all pics will work amongst these different tools, right? They might not have the total desired outcome that you want, but the bottom line is that it's the start of the technology. It's only going to get better. For now, as I said, I did a couple of staged shots, and it worked out perfectly for me. So very, very excited about that. Questions just come through. Hey, Brett, what have they done about night photography or low light photography? Okay, so I'm going to call night and low light the same thing, right? Again, I'm not a photographer, but they call it night sight. So to answer the question, it's a tool for like sharpening color and nighttime shots. So basically, if you take the size of the lenses, first of all, right, if you did look at them earlier, it's not surprising they're actually going to take such amazing night pics because they've got these big things just to suck in as much light as they possibly could. But night sight is part of the AI that's been put into the photo software that powers the Google Pixels. And if you look at some of the night shots that I've taken, a little bit of a tweak using the auto tool as well, the colors just pop. They're sharper. There's not that blurriness between the subject and the backgrounds because of a lack of light and definition. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes, they awesome night shots. I do seem to recall saying this last year as well. When I did the review on the Google 7 and 7 Pro, I seem to recall talking about how impressive nighttime photography was. I haven't done a comparison between the new 8 and the 7, but I'm going to have to just assume it is better. It's been a year, so they would have tweaked the software and you know, made some cool stuff with the lenses and so on. Anyway, the other cool features, including I mentioned Live Translate. I said I was going to probably talk about that later on the show. Live Translate, I'm just reading through some of my notes here. So Live Translate, it's basically a further improvement on Google's already pretty good translation capabilities. I actually did that the other day. Someone came up to me and asked me something in Spanish. And I looked and they held their hand up and they're like, no, wait. And they pulled up their phone. They had the voice on in Google Translate, so it had listened to what they asked me, and there it was in English. And then I tried to speak back, but it was still listening in Spanish. So I just took the phone, hit the reverse button, spoke, and there it was in Spanish. So I mean, it's awesome. So now with translation, it actually does it live on a phone call, on a video call. You can get transcriptions. I don't have anyone that I need to speak to in any foreign language yet, so I haven't tried it personally, but that is part of Android 14. The microphones have also been enhanced, which cuts out surrounding noise and wind. There's now crash detection, which will detect if you've been in a severe car crash. It's like one of those features, right, that you hope you never have to use, but it's nice to know that they're there. If you are in a crash, it will alert your emergency services and share your location. So let's say you're in a car and you're trapped and you can't get your phone. It's detected the crash. It's going to actually share where you are and contact emergency services for you. What else have we got? So yeah, well, look, I mean, there's lots of other features, right? I don't think I've had enough time to figure them all out. I've only been playing with the phone now for probably about 10 days, 12 days. I think last week I might have hinted that there was going to be something coming up. Bazinga, there it is. So yeah, that's that. What else have we got? Oh, I wanted to finish off with a cool feature, right? So let me see if I've got the picture. I'm going to just go back. So I'm going back to the pictures for those that are watching the show, specifically if you look at the white phone, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So I just found there's a little funny. So if you look at the phone, it looks like there's a flash on both of them, right? But below the flash, and here it is over here. So where my finger is, I thought there was like an extra flash or something like that as well. Maybe a microphone, but there's a little microphone in there. It's not. It's a thermometer. So they've actually included a thermometer into the phone. Now, because it hasn't been FDA approved, but the idea is that if it is FDA approved, it will be used on humans as well. But for now, you can check the surface temperatures of things. So for example, you could take a cup of coffee and hold your phone over the cup of coffee, and it will give you a temperature. Or I've always have a thermostat of cold water on my desk. I was opening and checking, and then about like 2 hours later, I did it again, and it had got a little bit warmer. Not much, great thermostat, but it had got a little bit warmer. So, why would you do this? Well, let's think about it, right? The logical thing, and this is obviously where it needs the approval. But if you're a mum or dad and your kid's sick, maybe got a high temperature, and this happens like ages 1 to 4 years old, kids teething, they get temperatures. You're sitting there with your kid on the lounge. You probably got your phone in your hand. You're basically doing things with your phone. You can't check your kid's temperature because you have to go and find a thermometer. And now it's built on the phone. So you could literally pick up your phone, hold it. You've got it in your hand anyway because your kid's probably sleeping on your lap. And you just put it against your kid's head. And that's it. Boom, done. So you can get your temperature there and then. So that's probably why they would do something like that. Maybe, given what happened with COVID, there was a need to check people's temperatures, maybe going into airports, things like that. So basically, yeah, it's there. It's cool. I mean, I haven't seen another phone with a thermometer built into it, right? I've seen infrared, I've seen thermometers, but I mean, I've seen infrared. We obviously have NFC in a lot of phones, but I've never ever seen a thermometer. So there we go. Right, let me just quickly go back into my slides, and this gets us to the Pixel Watch 2. So there it is there. It fits really nicely. On the surface, I have to say, not much visibly difference between the Pixel Watch from last year and the Pixel Watch 2. Kind of the same with the phones. Size is exactly the same. The brightness seems to be the same on the two watches, and I actually did a side by side. But what Google has done is they've taken advantage of their acquisition of Fitbit. So last year they'd kind of just acquired Fitbit, and they moved some of the tools into it to make their own watch. They've had a whole year, so they've focused on health. They've included a lot more sensors. They've put Qualcomm's latest processor into the watch. So as I said, from the outside, looks the same crown, same watches, same shapes, same. It's the inside where the changes have happened, and the back, the sensor on the back as well. Battery life has been enhanced. There's fast charging, which will now get you like 50% in 30 minutes, 100% in just over an hour. I think it's like an hour and a bit, 75 minutes. And that's important when it comes to wearables, because if you want to take advantage of sleep tracking, for example, as well as be active in the daytime, or if you have a really long day. So let's say your day starts at 7:30, you end 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, but you still want to track your sleep. You need the watch to do the work, right? So you need a battery that's going to keep up with you. And so far, the Pixel 2 does seem to do that. What I did, though, is I wore it all day. And then when coming home, and like supper time where you're supposed to disengage and put your phones down and all that kind of stuff, I just placed the watch in charge because I wasn't walking around. I wasn't doing gym, didn't actually need to see the notifications that were coming through or anything like that. So just giving it that half an hour, 45 minute, it kind of takes it back almost to full. And then you can wear it for sleep time, for tracking, and you're good to go the next day and you start your cycle again. I also did put on charge while having a shower. So, again, don't need the watch while I'm in the shower. I'm not in the shower that long, but again, 10, 15 minutes and it boosts up the battery. So you can get a whole day from your watch and night using it for active daytime tracking or sleep tracking, just by being creative when it comes to charging. And I mean, that applies to any wearable, right? People always go, oh, I want to use the phone and the watch, the tracker, whatever it is, but battery was dead like at 3 o'clock. Well, plan it properly that when you know you're going to be in downtime or in time that you don't need to engage or you're not active, charge the watch. You don't need an active tracker when you're not active, right? Now, I have to note, I'm not a fan of sleeping with a watch on. It's a comfort thing. It's got no other reason at all. I just don't find it comfortable sleeping with anything on my wrist. In fact, I've reviewed sleeping technology and I've actually put on my ankle. I felt like I was under home arrest. But yeah, so I don't like having things on my wrist. So I generally do not sleep with a watch. I did it for the reviews just to see there's pretty cool data that comes through. And again, this is the Fitbit integration. You do need Fitbit Premium, which I think they give you 6 months free when you get your Pixel Watch 2. So you don't have to pay for it straight up, so you can at least get to see it. And also, by the way, with Fitbit Premium, there's workouts. There's a lot more data and a lot more things you can do, like stress management. I think it's blood oxygen and oxygenation that you can check. Although the watch can do it, but you need the Fitbit to read it. I know some people are going to push back and say, "Oh, you got to pay for premium service. You don't get it." That is what it is. We're in the world of subscriptions. That's how these companies make their money. It's not going to go away anytime soon. And I got a good thing about subscriptions to end off on the watch. So I think the reality for me, right, is I would probably benefit from understanding the data a lot better, because there's people that do use the sleep data and they take advantage of this to correct bad sleeping. And ultimately, that's going to lead to more productive days and lives. That's the theory behind it. I think for me is that I actually don't want to know how badly I sleep. I know how bad I sleep, and denial, after all, is the best form of avoidance. So yeah, I'm personally never going to take advantage of it. And on that note, if you're not someone who's going to sleep with a watch, you've got more than enough time then to charge it next to your bed. So you will, while you're asleep, you will get a full day using all the features and tracking and running and all those good things. So yeah, they have definitely looked at the battery. I do want to point out that there is a really good feature so the watch is an LTE option, which means it can make phone calls. Now, for example, in Apple, when you buy an Apple Watch, you have a choice. You can get just the watch, they call it GPS, or you can get the GPS and cellular. And cellular is like the LTE version. It has an eSIM inside it, and you can take a subscription with your carrier, and you can then use the watch to make phone calls and that without being tethered to the phone. So the Google Pixel Watch 2, I think Pixel Watch 1 was the same, are LTE by default. So in other words, they're ready for eSIM. But if you don't want to use the feature, okay, now a lot of people get a watch with mobile capability, so LTE or carrier, especially when taking care of seniors or people that are at risk. And the reason they do is that they have a cellular line which will enable safety features like fall detection or emergency sharing or things like that. Now, the nice thing with the Pixel Watch 2 is that the LTE connection will give you emergency sharing, fall detection, and safety check functions, even if you don't have a carrier plan added. My carrier plan is $10 a month from Optus. I know I don't talk pricing, I just talk about, but that's mine. I'm paying 10 Australian dollars a month with my Australian provider called Optus. So I don't know what it is around the world, but basically, if I didn't need to use the phone without, the watch without the phone, but I was worried about fall detection or things like that, I wouldn't have to pay the $10 a month. So I think it was a really good move by Google that they've taken care of the emergency side of it. It's kind of similar to what Amazon did with the Kindles, right? The Amazon Kindles have a SIM card inside them. And when you download books from the Kindle store, you don't pay for the data. You never have. So, but you can't browse the web or do things like that. It's just used for delivery. So, Google's done the same thing. Now, the Google Pixel Watch 2 has a 5 ATM rating. Now, this means that it's good for a quick dip in the pool. it's not designed for surfing or strong water pressure. I think this is probably a good place for me to translate geek into regular speak. So 5 ATM means 5 atmospheres. It's the measurement of pressure, not depth. So a lot of people say 5 ATM is equal to 50 meters. It is 50 meters of pressure. In other words, what 50 meters of water, if you put it that way, would look like in a pressure focused point. It's not actually saying you can dive to 50 meters below the surface. In fact, I'm telling you, you can't dive to 50 meters below the surface. Your watch will break. So it's very confusing, but that's why you listen to the show. So someone asked me why they can't use the watch for surfing. It's very simple. Just remember the atmospheric pressure, right? So when you get dumped and sucked under by a big, large wave, the pressure at that moment on you, your body, and obviously your watch is a lot more than 5 ATM. It's probably closer to like 50 ATM, you know? And just think about that time when you went swimming, or if you are a surfer, when you got pulled under and it holds you under for a long period of time. And I mean, take your body weight. I'm 80 kgs. I cannot get up. I'm paddling. You know, you're trying to get back up to the top of the surface, and that pressure is just holding you there in the energy of the wave. That is a lot more than 5 ATM. Your watch is not designed for that. I know people swim with their watches, and I know that they surf with their watches, but it isn't designed for that. So, in fact, I'm going to give you a real life example. When you open the kitchen tap in your sink at home in full force, okay, that is 3 ATM. So if you put your hands under that water and you wash your hands, that is 3 ATM. Now compare that to a wave, and that's the reason why you can't. If you were just swimming in a pool, or you're paddling through the water, or even if you're wading in the early part of the ocean, it's fine. But you can't really go deeper than 1.5 meters. And even then, again, same as I mentioned, the phone earlier, do you need it? So you're walking next to the pool, you fall in, your watch is fine. Maybe you have a quick little swim because you're lying and you want to cool off, your watch is fine. The other thing to remember with all devices that are waterproofed or water resistant, as time goes on, that resistance decreases. It diminishes. Wear and tear, turning the crown on your watch, clicking the buttons, age, air, oxidization, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, if you want your devices to last long, keep them away from the things that they actually weren't really designed for, but kind of been built to try and manage because someone did fall in a pool once upon a time. Question that just came through here is, do the Pixel Buds, can you connect the Pixel Buds to work direct? I'm reading it, okay. I'm just going to read the question. I'm just going to say, can you connect the Pixel Buds with the watch directly? Yes. So I've actually never reviewed a pair of Google Pixel Buds. So it's quite strange given how many different headsets I have. But anyway, so I'm going to just say yes because Google has a whole thing made for Pixel. Pixel always works better with Pixel. All the images that I've seen have buds with them. In fact, this year at Made by Google 2023, they didn't announce new Pixel Buds, but they announced, I think it was just 2 colors. There were 2 new colors that came out in the range. So I'm going to say with confidence, yes. And I'm going to say it with confidence, the simple reason that I said I don't have Pixel Buds, but I paired my JLabs with them. You go into the watch, you go to settings, you go Bluetooth, you go pair new device, looks for the Bluetooth, it pairs, it works. I listen to music on there. Yeah, so if you want to go for a run, you can listen to your music while you're running without the need for your phone. You can do it on there. You will need to have a data connection for that. So if I was using Amazon Music, I didn't store the music in my watch. It was streaming, so that's where the LTE comes into it as well. So if you Google Music or YouTube Premium or YouTube Music, or in my case, I had Amazon Music going as well. So yeah, it works, and it would be really remiss if it didn't. That kind of, I think, brings me to the end of it. There's no other questions that came through here. No. So as I said, today was just all about the Google Pixel devices. That takes us to the end of the show. So I suppose until next week, keep your screens clean and your knobs shiny.